Laws of Software Evolution, Kevlin Henney. Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. Tech support said they're going to come out and close that thing up for sure. They're going to close it. It's going to be out of my hair. I believe him this time. I'm going to listen to Kevlin Henney. He's probably the best of these software architecture guys. Yeah, he's been. I think he's more understanding of what this process is, more than Uncle Bob. I like to dog out Uncle Bob. I agree with like 20% of what he's talking about, but the way he delivers it is just so sales pitchy. But I don't get that feeling from Kevlin. I'm sure he does the same stuff, but I just don't get that same vibe. I don't know. Let's see what he has to say.
As an evolving program is continually changed, its complexity, reflecting deteriorating structure, increases unless work is done to maintain or reduce it. Now, there's a number of points here. First of all, brilliant observation. He was actually making these observations in the 1970s. The paper...
Yeah. It's not deteriorating structure. It's you're adding and changing and modifying it and making it better in different ways that were all unexpected, that the platforms have not really built to support that. It's always been a thing to get there, not to modify it, change it, understand it, how you got there, or like how to get there easier, how to try things. It wasn't part of the thing. These have been tacked on. These have been tacked on to the end of it. So at this moment in time, yeah, I'm sure he's talking about how the cruft just builds up because you had one conception of the thing, but now it's this other thing. Over time, it turns into this other thing. It's like your favorite axe, where you've replaced the handle twice and the head 3 times. Is it still the same axe? Well, it's your favorite axe, so it's better be your same. It's like one of the things change too much. I think that's what he's trying to get at.
By the way, just so that we've got, in case you can't see it, programs, life cycles, and laws of software evolution. Really interesting read. And a lot of ideas, nearly half a century later, you go, oh, okay, this is quite an old idea, but also there's different ways of thinking things. I found this paper to be filled with good ideas that we've somehow overlooked.
I haven't read it.
But he's making a couple of observations here. One is the very nature of applying change to a system will degrade its structural quality.
I mean, yeah, especially if it's not designed to be changed, in a way to be changed, or expectation to be changed, or a direction it might go in, or time to us to reassemble. Like, is this still the same? Should we try to change this program or write a new one, or should we think about how, if you're going to be asking these changes, can we go to a system that allows us to make those things change without having hard feelings, or having a time estimate? Like, how do you know how long this is going to take? We don't know. We can just go faster. We can just show you stuff easier to make that happen better.
Even, and this is kind of implicit, so let's make it explicit, even if you do a good job. Of course, if you do a bad job, it's going to degrade faster. So let's it's not one of those cases where,
okay, what does that mean?
No point in trying because it's always going to get worse. No, the rate of decline. You know, if you're applying all your best practices, that's certainly going to be a massive improvement on not.
I mean, but some of these best practices are only fit for the thing that you're trying to do at certain times. There's ideas of things that consider some best practices, like a bunch of laws, like they're engineering, like it's some sort of engineering thing. It's more like things to consider. I wish they put it that way. That way people wouldn't be thinking that these are the laws. I've put all the laws in my source code. It's there, and now it's all going to work. It's like, now you're missing it. So that's part of it, but it's not the whole thing.
But what I'm saying here is that if you are applying all your best practices, you will still experience typically a degradation of quality. It goes back to the idea of focus. The idea of focus is you're so busy focusing on this thing, whether this thing is this method, whether this thing is to introduce this dependency in a way that you find clean and satisfying and comprehensible. And you put tests.
I love Dev Tools Made Simple. He's always got his IDE open. This is his IDE. He's always got some weird, like, example program source code. It's fun.
And you do all the right things. Surely there's no degradation of structure there, or no opportunity for degradation.
Some XML.
Actually, there is, because perhaps what you've looked at or not looked at is the larger context, because you've been focused. Remember, this is the nature of attention. The idea of attention is that focus is where you put your attention. By definition, that means you're taking it away from everything else. You are ignoring everything else. You cannot focus on everything simultaneously. So you probably ignore the context. You probably ignore the fact that maybe this dependency, introducing this, has a conflict or makes some other dependency redundant.
Could be, yeah. It's tough to have all that stuff in there. That's why keeping them encapsulated, the stuff like that Alan Kay talks about, which I bring up in my course. I talk about this quite a bit in my course, How to Program from the Ground Up. What he's talking about, the main idea between object-oriented programming, when he coined that term, object-oriented programming, was not the objects and classes and how they're all built up. It's the messages. So this is why we get to a level of complexity where we kind of need to put that behind a box and just send a message over there. You just do it because it's just too much to handle. Like, give it back to me when I think I gave you, and you handle the complexity.
Okay, that's fine. We expect that. Maybe you'll notice this in 5 minutes. Maybe you'll notice it in 5 weeks. Maybe a colleague of yours will stumble across it in 5 months. The point there is, even when you're doing the right thing, there's still an opportunity for this degradation structure. In fact, we might actually say this is inherent in physical processes.
Yeah.
When we do something, there is a side effect, and we understand that.
Yeah.
I don't tend to if I go to the kitchen to make a meal, I do not declare, all right, I'm going to the kitchen to make a mess. There will be a mess. I like to think that the mess I create is kind of contained, and I tidy as I go.
The inherent complexity and the accidental complexity. The mess that's made is the accidental complexity. That's waste, right? But the end product is the thing we're trying to do, and the inherent complexity is that we got to be in the kitchen slicing stuff up and putting it in the pan and cooking it and heating it up and cooling it down and putting sauces on it and all that stuff.
More on that later. But there will still be a mess. I still have to account for the fact that I will need space for dirty dishes, that I will need to do the dishes, even if it's to put it in, as we refer to it at home, the dirty dishes cupboard.
Yeah, we don't want to think about that. The managers don't think that there's a thing called waste, that there's part of the process. It seems like this is like anathema. Like, they want to do all the factory metaphors except the waste that's part of it, and just inherent in the system. And there's going to be possibly defects, things that go wrong, don't go as expected, as just inherent part of the process. The software developer people are like, just don't know how long is it going to take. I need an estimate. Well, I don't know. What's your precision? Can we even, is it possible? Can we do a little study on even estimates, if they even work? Maybe you can just give us a time frame. If we do it in that time frame, we can keep going. And if we don't,
I will have to do something there. The very process of creating a meal, consuming a meal, will involve making something dirty. It will involve making a mess.
Sure.
I'm fine with that, because that's the way the physical world works. Yeah?
See, I love Kevlin because he brings this stuff up, which is like, it's like another level that you don't normally get to talk about or see. And this is what I was expecting Bob to be. And it's I guess people don't just on the level 1. Then I'm at level 2. It's like, yeah, we got to do. I've been at level 1 for a while. And we all have this cycling, looping thing. It's like Kevlin's kind of took this. Oh, what about this other thing we can talk about? So that's why I like Kevlin.
If you've had any work done on your house, you'll know it gets messy before it gets better.
Oh yeah.
And it's inherent. We assume that it's normal. We don't do that in software. We assume that the work we've just done is the work in its totality.
Right. Yeah, because they kind of see it. See, one of the things that happens is Harvard MBAs walk in while they have a software thing that's working because they found a guy that's got a solution. But they don't see all the tinkering and the messing around, the goofy stuff that they made and stuff that was irrelevant while he was trying to learn whatever the thing was. And all the people that failed, they tried for 2 weeks and the timing wasn't quite right, or they only had enough money to get this particular thing where the marketing was bad, but the product was really good. And the guy couldn't find any funding, so he gave up. There's so much of that stuff. And all of a sudden, Lucky Look comes through. It's like, well, that's just easy. It's like, no, man, there's this whole thing happening. And people assume that, that just came. It's like, well, it just must be easy to reproduce. Like, no, man. That guy often got lucky, plus hard work, plus timing. Come on.
You can't have code bases, and you can't work on code bases for free. If you put in your requirements, you also have to deal with the consequences of creating and working with software.
Yeah.
There is this idea that you have to maintain it. Let's go back to the dirty dishes cupboard, our dishwasher.
Yeah. Well, if you don't just want to throw it away immediately after you ship it, I mean that's an option, I guess. But like usually you want to like modify it, add some features to fix some bugs, change. You might want to be fixing it along the way, not just immediately trash it. I mean, eventually we're just gonna abandon it, not trash it. It's always gonna be sitting there waiting for some human to come along, go want to activate it, but eventually it's just abandoned. We don't nobody runs that anymore. Nobody talks about that thing anymore. It's just something in a library on a shelf back in the back. Only if you want to update the features or update some new thing or adapt it to some operating system. Otherwise, it could just sit there. If it ran once, it's on that machine and that with that level of OS, whatever, it'll always run. But no, you got to maintain it, yeah, because there's all this other stuff happening that you want to keep up with. I mean, there's nothing saying you have to. There's lots of software out there that people still run today that was not maintained.
Maintenance is a thing that is required for physical things, because through our interaction with them, we have wear and tear.
But that's not the same. That's not the same as source code. Source code doesn't have computers. The computers have wear and tear, but the programs don't. They just stop working in a system because it's not compatible for some reason, or they haven't done it backwards compatibility, or done a side loader, or an emulator yet.
That's just the way that it works. Now, of course, I'm not saying that your code needs maintenance in the runtime. I'm not saying that we've left this binary for a year, all the ones have decayed into zeros. It's not like that.
No, but if you want to update it and keep it going with all the other changes everyone's going with doing, then yeah, you got to update it. But by itself, there's like all this ancient software you can still run today. It's the same code that was there back in the 70s, 60s, 80s. It's retro computing. It's a thing. You know about it, I'm sure.
Has anybody touched this source code, since last year? No. Yeah, I noticed the curly brackets are kind of beginning to fade or fall off to the bottom of the file. That's not what I mean. No. It's the idea that the interaction that we have with the code to do anything is likely to have these other effects.
Well, because the operating system underneath is changing, or some API is changing, or somebody did an update to the thing and they deprecated something, and then you try and update it and you're asking for that service and it no longer exists, or it exists in a different way, or all that stuff. The code doesn't rot, it just becomes incompatible and or just not run. So we have to account for this. Maybe do we? I'm not seeing lots of places do it. If they're making money with that version and they think they can widen the market or deepen the market, go further people that haven't tried it out yet, and they buy version 2, then they're going to do version 2. And if there's no give it up, or they can't grow the company, or they get acquired or whatever, and the new company says we don't want that, then there's no version 3. It's all this human decision stuff. It's like the source code has a life of its own, and somebody has to write this stuff.
In a space where sometimes we hear this often. You may have seen it, you may have experienced it. So our business is prioritizing, new requirements over technical work. What do they think?
What does that mean? New requirements over technical work? You mean over like backlog, or trying to clean stuff up, make things better some way? Which I don't even know if that's possible. I think he just has to start over. Sometimes you just got to start over and design it in a way so we can make it easy to update, maintain, read, all that stuff.
Think new requirements are made of pixie dust. Their new requirements are made of technical stuff. All requirements work is technical work. There is no such thing as we're not allowed to do technical work because we're working on the requirements, unless your requirements live on a whiteboard and never actually have to be deployed.
Okay, that must be architect stuff. I'm not sure what kind of companies do that, but I guess there might be some out there. All right, I'm kind of a big fan of Kevlin. I think he gets into the deeper stuff. And yeah, give me a like and subscribe, and I'll keep going with my rants.